What's up YouTube, it's your boy Nash here, welcome back to the channel, and today I have a very intriguing deck profile for you guys. What is that deck profile? None other than Morphtronic. It's interesting because Morphtronics didn't really excel as far as the meta goes over the years, but I thought it'd be fun to build it just to see how good it is, and it's actually pretty good, I have to admit. There's hardly any breaks in the deck, and you're able to make at least 2 to 3 synchros per turn, depending on your hand. So it's pretty good, I would say. So let's get straight into it. So first up, we have 3 copies of Morphtronic Staplein. This card's really cool because its effect says because a lot of these Morphtronic cards, a lot of these Morphtronic monsters have unique effects, whether when they're in attack position or in defense position. So for Morphtronic Staplein, the effect for while in attack position says your opponent cannot select another monster as an attack target. If this card is destroyed by battle, the monster that destroyed this card loses 300 attack. In defense, this card cannot be destroyed in battle. If this card is attacked after damage count, select a face-up position monster your opponent controls, change it to defense, and this card to attack. So it's pretty cool because it's a protection card. It ensures that while in attack position, this card is the only card that your opponent can attack, and when it's in defense, you can switch this card back into attack mode and your opponent's monster into defense. So it's kind of like I would say like a insect barrier, zero gravity type of deal. Where if you guys don't know insect barrier protects all insect monsters from being destroyed in battle. So that's what the attack position monster the attack position effect is like. But the second effect, while in defense, it has a zero gravity where it switches your monster from defense to attack, and your opponent's monster from attack to defense. So it's a pretty cool effect, I would say. Next up, we have 3 copies of Morphtronic Boomboxin. Again, 2 effects. While in attack position, this card can attack twice during each battle phase. While in defense, when a face-up Morphtronic monster you control is targeted for an attack, you can negate the attack. So it's basically a Cyber Twin. It's a Cyber Twin negate attack. Negate attack is an old school counter trap. Yeah. Excuse me. Where it just negates any attack at all. It not only negates the attack, but it ends the battle phase right off the bat. So that's what the defense is kind of like. And then the attack position effect has a Cyber Twin effect where it can attack twice during each battle phase. So not too shabby. I mean being able to Cyber Twin your opponent during each battle phase and being able to negate your opponent's monster's attacks is a really good effect. And plus, since those are the only since these two and this next one that I'm going to show off are the only 4-star monsters of the whole deck, you can use any of you can use Staplein, Boomboxin, and or Radion, which is the next one that I'm going to showcase here in a second, to go into Utopia and then rank it up into Utopia the Lightning, which it's pretty good. Next up, we have 2 copies of Morphronic Radion. This is a weird one because Because it says, while in attack position, Morphtronic monsters you control gain 800 attack, and while in defense, your Morphtronic monsters gain 1,000. It's an interesting effect, but you mainly want to use this card mainly to use it as either synchro material or as Xyz material going into Utopia and into Utopia Ray, or go into Power Tool Dragon, Power Tool Mecha Dragon, or even also FA Don Draxter, or pretty much any other 7-star synchro that you want to go into. So you mainly want to use Radion for that. You don't want to use it for its effect, because it is true that it can either gain, your Morphtronic monsters can gain 800 attack or 1,000 defense. It is true, but the only downside is that the only downside is the fact that because a lot of these Morphtronic monsters have low attack and pretty mid and I would say mid defense, it's gonna be difficult to attack your opponent's monsters unless if they have 2,000 or less attack, then that's fine. But again, you mainly want to use Radion for the Xyz plays, maybe even for the Link plays as well. Next up, and now for the tuners. First up, we have 3 copies of Morphtronic Scopin. While in attack position, once per turn, you can special summon a level 4 Morphtronic monster from your hand and destroy it during the end phase. While in defense, this card, while in defense, if this card is face up in defense, it is level 4. So you can use so what's cool about Scopin is that it doesn't matter what you do, whether you put it in attack or in defense. Either way, you're going to be able to go into either a level 7 or potentially a level 9 play, which would be Scopin, Radion, and I'll say Selfon. Or Selfon, yeah. Which Selfon is a 1-star monster, which I'll get to him in a second. So it would be, if Scopin were to be in defense, you can tune Scopin with Radion with Radion and also Selfon, and you can go into none other than Vermilion Dragon Mech, which is a 9-star monster, or you could do Scopin, Radion, and 2 Selfon, which is absolutely insane. And you can go into and you can go into either Ascension Sky Dragon or Ally Justice Decisive Armor, which I'll get to those cards once we get to the extra deck here in a minute. So again, it's really cool, but it really doesn't matter what you do with Scopin, whether you put it in attack or defense. Either way, you're going to be going into your synchro plays instantly right off the bat. Next up, we have two copies of Morphtronic Remote, and this is a weird one. This is a weird card because it says one per turn. While in attack position, you can target a Morphtronic monster in your graveyard, banish that target, and add a Morphtronic monster with the same level as that target from the deck to the hand. So, and then once per turn, while in defense position, you can send a Morphtronic monster from your hand to the grave and add one other Morphtronic monster with the same level as that monster from your graveyard to your hand. So with the attack position effect, it's a sort of like a Rhoda of sorts, but with the defense, it's more so of a monster reincarnation. So basically, what you do is you take a monster from your hand, send it to the graveyard, and then bring back a monster from your graveyard. The only difference is that the monster you sent to the grave, the monster you bring back from the grave has to have the same level as the one you sent to the grave. So, for instance, if you send, say for example, you send Staple into from your hand to the grave, you can add Radion. You can add Radion back to your hand from your grave, or even Boomboxing, which I mean, it's pretty good. But again, you're gonna you're gonna mostly go into your synchro plays mostly, and that's your main wing. Your main wing condition are mainly some of the cards in the extra deck, and there's actually a few that will be your big win condition, and I'll showcase you guys what that is here in a second. Next up, 2 copies of Ash Blossom. It's Ash Blossom. You gotta have it. Being able to prevent your opponent from adding adding cards from the deck to the hand, or special summoning from the deck, or sending cards from the deck to the graveyard, drawing cards, or whatever. It can do a lot. It can come a long way, especially if you're needing to combo off next turn. Ash Blossom can be so instrumental. Next up, we have only one copy of Morphtronic Lantron. This is a weird one, because if you guys remember in the 5Ds anime, it was known as Morphtronic Lantron, I believe, and it had an effect where if it landed on yellow, you would be dealt damage, but if it landed on green, I believe you would gain life points, I believe. That was a weird one. But the effect is kind of cool, because as the errata, if you will. It says, while in type position, any effect damage that you would take from an opponent's effect is inflicted to your opponent. It says, so it has an effect similar to number 14, Greedy Saramaya, where again, it's any effect damage you normally would get dealt, your opponent takes instead. Which, that right there is broken. Being able to use that against any of the missing mind decks that run a bunch of burn cards, that could really help you out. And then when it's in defense, if this card is sent to the grave by battle, you take no damage. It's interesting because that effect is basically Wing Karibo, if you will. So that's pretty fun. That's actually that's a gimmicky card, I would say. Next up, we have 2 copies of Morphtronic Smartphone. This is a cool one because it says, cannot be normal summon or send. Must first be special summon from your hand by banishing a Morphtronic monster from your grave. So it has an effect similar to the Dragon Rulers, where you have to banish certain cards or a certain card from your graveyard in order to summon it. And then it says, while in attack position, once per turn, you can roll a 6-sided die, excavate that many cards from the top of the deck, add 1 excavated Morphtronic card to your hand. Also shuffle the rest back into the deck. While in defense, once per turn, you can roll a 6-sided die, look at that many cards from the top of the deck, then place all of them on either the top or the bottom of the deck in any order you desire. You mainly want to use this card for the attack position effect, because the effect is basically Pot of Duality. It's literally Pot of Duality, which is so much better than the one in defense, because the one in defense has an effect similar to Destiny Hero Dominance, where Dominance you can excavate 5 cards from the top of your deck and arrange them in any order, so you know exactly what you're gonna do next turn. The defense with this one is similar. The only thing is that it has to be either the top or the bottom. If you put it on the top, you may end up bricking. But even if you put them on the bottom, you can also brick as well with the top card that you draw next turn, which could be anything. It could even be something like a Twin Twister or something like that, which is in the side, and I'll showcase to you guys that. I'll showcase why later on. But yeah, and also a 1-star tuner, being able to do Radion, Cellphone, Smartphone into Coral Dragon. Yeah, that's pretty good, I would say. And then last but not least, 3 copies actually of Morphtronic Cellphone. This is kind of a cool one because it says, while in attack position, once per turn, you can roll a 6-sided die, reveal cards from the top of your deck equal to the roll, and special summon one level 4 or lower Morphtronic monster from among them, ignoring the summoning condition. So you can even also summon Morphtronic Smartphone as well, ignoring its summoning condition, which is really, really good, and then shuffle the rest back into the deck. So again, it's kind of like a part of duality. While in defense, once per turn, you can roll a 6-sided die. Look at cards from the top of your deck equal to the roll, then return them in the same order. That one, yeah, you're gonna want to do the attack position one because that way you're able to search out literally what you need for your synchro plays, or even also potentially your Xyz plays, depending on what route you want to go into. But what's cool about this is that about Cellphone is that when it's when it is in defense, you can still look at the cards from the top of your deck equal to the roll, and once you have an idea of what your next cards are going to be, you'll have an idea as to what play you'll be making next during your turn. So say for example you rolled a 5, let's say that, and the 5 cards are, I'll say, Ash Blossom, Upstart, Morphtronic Accelerator, Morphtronic Map, and I'll say Solemn Strike. Let's say that. Basically, you'll have an idea of what to do next. If the top card is Morphtronic Map or no, is Morphtronic Accelerator. With this card, and actually, since we're getting into the spells, I'll get into it right now. With Morphtronic Accelerator, it says return one Morphtronic monster from your hand to the deck, destroy one card in the field, and draw one card. It's basically 3 effects in one. Literally, that's what this card is. Being able to draw out the Morphtronic cards that you need to go into your Xyz plays or potentially your Synchro plays. This card can really do a lot of damage depending on how you see it. Next up, we have the one copy of Upstart Goblin. Again, being able to just draw out your whole deck, draw out more of your cards is really good. The downside, again, your opponent gains 1,000. It is unfortunate, but the only thing that matters is whether or not you get the cards you need. So Upstart can really help you out. Next up, we have 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone. Being able to just remove back row, or rather banish the back row, it can go a long way. Next up, we have 2 copies of Double Tool C and D. This card can be equipped to either Power Tool or a level 4 or higher Morphtronic monster. And while it's equipped during your turn, it gains 1,000. And if it attacks, any effects on the field, any effects of the attack target that effect or apply on the field are negated during the battle phase. So pretty much anything. So it can pretty much negate. It can negate. I believe. Hold on. Hold on. Let me. Oh, okay. I think I get it. Equip only to a power tool dragon or level 4 or higher machine type Morphtronic monster you control. While equipped during your turn, it gains 1,000 attack. If it attacks, any effects of the attack target that activate or apply on the field are negated during the battle phase. So basically, your opponent's. I believe that your opponent's effects are negated. I don't think it works with. I don't think your monster's effects are negated. I think it's your opponent's, if I remember correctly. And then during your opponent's turn, your opponent cannot select a monster other than the equipped monster as an attack target. An opponent's monster that battles the equipped monster is destroyed at the end of the damage step. So Yeah, basically, so basically it just ensures that your opponent doesn't have a board, basically, which is really, really good. Next up, we have Morphronic Cord. 2 copies of Morphronic Cord. Equip only to a Morphronic monster. Each time the equipped monster's battle position is changed, destroy a spell trap on the field. Again, being able to just pop your opponent's back row is just really, really good. And this card and this card could really do you a lot because you have so much back row removal in Cosmic Cyclone. This card, Morphronic Cord, you have Solemn Strike, and you even also have cards like Twin Twister, and also a card in the side called The Huge Revolution is Over, which I'll explain that in a second. Yeah, just again being able to just remove back row and being able to force your opponent to use up their back row could really come a long way. Next up, we have 2 copies of Mage Power. Being able to just make this card your main win condition as far as the main card, the main deck goes. Being able to equip this to one of your Synchros, give it some extra firepower. That right there is just broken because it says the equipped monster gains 500 attack and defense for each spell trap you control. So if you have this card and let's say the field spell, which is obviously a Morphtronic map, and 4 of the back row, that's what? 3,000 attack? Equip this card to Decisive Armor, that's 6,300 attack. At best, it's 6,300 attack, which is incredible, which is insane. Next up, we have, and then for the last of the spells, we have 2 copies of Morphtronic Map. This is a weird one because it says each time a monster's battle position is changed, place a morph counter on this card. All Morphtronic monsters gain 300 attack for each morph counter on this card. When this card is destroyed and sent to the grave, you can special summon a Morphronic monster from your grave. So it's basically it's basically a breaker / monster reborn, so to speak, because the breaker you gain counters basically with breaker. You also and it gains 3 and breaker would gain 300 attack for that counter. This one combo this with Morphronic Cord and even also the trap card Morphtronic Monotron. You can gain so many counters with those 2 cards. It is absolutely absurd. So that again there are so many ways you can break your opponent's board, and those cards can really come a long way. It just depends on how you see it. Now moving on to the traps. There's actually 2, 4, 6, 7, 9. There are 9 traps in the main. First up, we have 2 copies of Stormy Mirror Force. Being able to just break your opponent's board with this, it's just absolutely broken. It says when an opponent's monster declares an attack, return all your opponent's attack position monsters to the hand. That can come a long way, especially if those monsters are cards from the extra deck. That they're gonna take a while for them to remake their board, given the fact that some of their combo pieces could end up in the graveyard instead of back into the main. So that can come a long way. Next up, we have 2 copies of Infinite Impermanence. The only other, I believe, the only other hand trap in the main. Imperm is just Imperm. You can't go wrong with Imperm. I can't say anything more about it. Next up, we have Morphtronic Monotron. Only 1 copy. This is a cool one because this card has a sort of like a zero gravity effect where if a Morphronic monster is summoned, whether it's normal or special, you can change it to face up defense. Being able to do that and go into and trigger the effect of Morphronic Map to give it another counter, it can really come a long way. Being able to give it more and more counters and give your Morphronic monsters extra attack points is really good because depending on how your opponent's board is set up, it can either help you out or it could just say, you know what, I'm done with you. Done. Bye. You're done. That's how it goes. And speaking of Insect Barrier, I mentioned the card Insect Barrier earlier. We have one copy of Morphtronic Bind. This is a cool one because it says while you control a face of Morphtronic monster, all low 4 or higher monsters your opponent controls cannot attack or change their battle position. So it's kind of like a Insect Barrier shadow spell, so to speak. So if you don't know what I mean by that, Insect Barrier, it not only you with the Insect Barrier, you have to have a Morphtronic monster on the field, so you have to have at least one. And with the shadow spell effect, it prevents your opponent from attacking or changing from having their monsters attack or changing their monsters' battle positions. And then for the counter traps, we have the one copy of Solemn Strike, and then the 2 copies of Morphtronic Force Field, which is kind of like a Solemn Judgment. It says negate the activation of a spell or trap that would destroy a face of Morphtronic monster you control and destroy it. Add one Morphtronic card from your deck to your hand. So it's a Solemn Judgment Rhoda, so to speak, which that could come a long way, given how crazy the Morphtronic cards are. That can come a long way. Moving on into the extra deck for the links, the only 2 links in the deck, we have the one Crystron Halka-Fibrites, and of course Boardload Dragon. Boardload Dragon is just really good. Is just a really good 3,000 body on board. It's a 3,000 beat stick. You can't go wrong with that. And then also with Halka-Fibrites, being able to just summon, tuners from your deck and going and just comboing off into your synchro plays could really help out. And plus, you can even also use this card to summon Coral Dragon, or even also Lifestream Dragon, which is in here as well. For the Xyz, we have Utopia and Utopia the Lightning. Being able to go into Utopia and then rank it up into Utopia the Lightning, and being able to give this card an additional 2,500 attack, doubling its attack can really help you out, especially given the fact that your opponent's monsters could potentially have at least 4,000, maybe even less. So that could really help you out. Next up, we also have the one copy of number 81 Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Super Dora. It says, once per turn, as a quick effect, you can detach material from this card, then target a face-up monster on the field. That target is unaffected by card effects except its own until the end of the turn. So you're going to be using this effect to use on your Decisive Armor, your Vermilion Dragon Mag, or whoever you want, because there's going to be some cards that your opponent will have that will take control of your monsters, like Mind Control or even Brain Control for that matter. This card could really help out. Now on to the Synchros. We have 2 copies of Coral Dragon. This card is just here as a Halka-Fibrites target, and it says once per turn you can discard a card, then target a card your opponent controls and destroy it. If this Synchro summon card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you draw a card. You can only use this effect once per turn. So it's pretty cool because you're able to again continue to break your opponent's board with cards like Coral Dragon. Could really come a long way. Next up, we have F.A. Dawn Dragster. Kind of an odd one, but it's a really good and a really good disruption on board. It's just really good. Really, I don't have to say anything about Dawn Dragster. Next up, we have the one copy of Power Tool Mecha Dragon. It's kind of an interesting one because it says, during your turn, when an equipped spell or spell cards is equipped to this card, you can draw a card. You can only use this effect once per turn. Once per turn during your opponent's turn, you can target one appropriate face-up equipped card on the field. Equip that target to this card. So being able to switch equipped cards from one monster to this card could really come a long way, and that can also trigger the first effect where you're able to draw one card, which that's just broken. Literally going from having Power Tool C and D go from Power Tool Dragon to Power Tool Mecha Dragon. it's really good. And you know, or I guess not. I guess not, because technically it's not a power tool. But you know, going from like, you know, mage power or power tool to Mecha Dragon, that could come a long way. Next up, we have Power Tool Dragon, the original. Basically, with this, it's a rota for equip spells. I don't have to say anything else about it. I don't have to say anything else about it. It's just really good. It's just really good. Next up, we have the one Lifestream Dragon. This one is kind of a weird one, but you mainly want to use this. You mainly want to summon him when your life points are lower than 4,000, because that way, when you do summon this card, your opponent's your life points become 4,000, which will give you still a fighting chance, and you get to take no effect damage. Right, just right there is really good. And it says, if this face-up card on the field would be destroyed, you can banish an equip spell from your grave instead. So you have literally 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 equip spells. So that would be a total of 7. That would be up to 7 saves, basically, right there. Next up, we have the one copy of Vermilion Dragon Mech. This is a cool one because it says, once per turn, you can banish one tuner from your hand, from your hand, graveyard, or face-up field, and target one card in the field and destroy it. If this synchro summon card is destroyed by a card effect sent to the grave, you can target one of your banished tuners added to your hand. So being able to again, just pop your opponent's cards, break their board, and being able to attack your opponent potential for game, that can really do you. Again, cards like these can do a lot of damage. Next up, we have the one copy of Ascension Sky Dragon. This was actually the YCS promo from a few years ago, actually. So it's kind of weird that it's an older card. Actually, it's so weird. But it says, if this card is synchro summon, it gains 800 attack for each card currently in your hand. Which again, cards like Upstart Goblin and also Morphtronic Accelerator could really come in handy for you. When this card you control is destroyed by your opponent's card and sent to your grave, if all of the monsters that were used for the synchro summon of this card are in your grave, you can special summon all of them, but their effects are negated. You can only use this effect once per turn. So being able to just bring them back and go into Decisive Armor. Decisive Armor is literally going to be your main win condition. If you're able to make this card, it's done. Your opponent, you essentially just win the duel. Because with Decisive Armor, it says, once per turn, if your opponent controls a face-up light monster, you can activate one of these effects. Select one card your opponent controls and destroy it. Send one card from your hand to the grave, destroy all spells and traps your opponent controls. Send all cards in your hand to the grave to look at your opponent's hand and send all light monsters in their hand to the grave. Then inflict damage to your opponent equal to the total of the opponent's monsters sent to the graveyard. Essentially, you essentially just win the duel with this card. That's it. It's done. Once you summon Decisive Armor, it's done. It's essentially done. You essentially just win the game right off the bat. I don't have to say anything more about Decisive Armor. It's just really that good. For the side deck, we have the one copy of Dark Magician and Red Eyes Black Dragon. You know what's up. Red Eyes Dark Dragoon and Verde Anaconda. Red Eyes Fusion. You can't go wrong with that. Then we have the two copies of Nibiru the Primal Being. Being able to break your opponent's board can really come in handy. Especially given the fact that you want to see your plays go through. You want to see your plays go through. So Nibiru and even also Red Eyes Dark Dragon could really help you out. And then of course the third copy of Ash Blossom. I didn't have any room for the main, so I ended up just siding it out, so putting it in the side. And then, of course, again, as I mentioned, Dark Dragoon and Verde Anaconda, and then the Red Eyes Fusion. Next up, Twin Twister, again, being able to have more utility to pop your opponent's back row is just really good. Then we have two copies of Crackdown. This is basically a mind control but in trap form, being able to use your opponent's monsters to summon, Dragon Mag, Ascension Sky Dragon, or even also Decisive Armor could really come in handy. Really, really good. Then we have the 2 anti-spell fragrance, being able to prevent your opponent from activating spells is really good. But the only downside is that it also works on you as well. So it is a little unfortunate, but because that there are only 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, because that there are only 15 spells in the main, that's not too bad. That's actually not too bad. And then, last but not least, the 1 copy of the Huge Revolution is over. It's a counter trap. It's kind of like a Solemn Judgment, but what's cool about this is that it says when a spell trap or monster effect is activated that would destroy 2 or more cards on the field, negate the activation and banish it. That right there is just absolutely insane. It's an older card that was seen in Order of Chaos, I believe, and I think with my box, I think I only pulled 1, which is kind of sad, but it's a pretty cool effect. It's another form of Solemn Judgment, but instead of sending that card to the grave, it gets banished instead. I may end up taking out the anti-spell fragrance and putting in a second copy of the Huge Revolution is over and Jar of Avarice, because with Jar of Avarice, obviously you're going to be able to take your cards, put them back into the deck, draw a card. I might do that. I'm not so sure. I'm still thinking about that. But guys, that is going to do it for this video, for this deck profile. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts on this. What cards should I take out? What cards should I put in? I'm actually kind of curious because you guys know I always do updates on these decks in the future, especially with each ban list that comes out. So let me know in the comments below your thoughts, and that is going to do it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you guys smash that thumbs up button if you guys are new to the channel. If you guys want to see more deck profiles in the future, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you guys do not miss out. Check me out on Twitter and Instagram. All the links will be down in the description. I will be posting the deck on Instagram, so make sure you guys are following me on Instagram. And if you guys have fan mail that you want to send me and want me to open up on the channel, my address will also be in the description. And on that, this is your boy Nash, signing out.